it got cut off there. Although I wanted to keep it one long video, I guess it's gonna be either connected or two videos. So coming back to the journey of unfolding, the snowing is unfolding, and it's taken me on many different paths, right? My question being that are we supposed to be consuming so much, and are we supposed to be consuming at all? Because there are all these people that now that are autonomous or wanting to be autonomous, meaning not consuming anything at all. No food, no water, and at times no sleep. So what is the right way, right? The question in my mind, what is the right way? What is the right way for me? And with that question, the universe has taken me on this incredible journey of discovering what is the right thing for me, or better said, showing me around through every spat, through every which way possible. And some of the ways I've already known from the past, and some of the ways are very new to me, like this autonomous not eating thing, fasting for prolonged periods of times for clarity and for resetting your immune system. That's new to me, and I see that it works. But alongside this specific thing, the fasting, right, which I believe is like, is a whole separate end of an issue of food, right? So you have overeating, obesity on one side, and not eating at all, or overconsumption on one side and consuming absolutely zero on the other side. I think that the truth lies somewhere in between, and you can yo-yo. You can come back to one of the as a wholesome person, you should experience it all. You should experience all of the ways. You should allow yourself to get obese, or not obese, but to go through eating everything, through allowing to eat everything, see how your body responds. You should go and try fasting and not eating anything at all. You should try juicing. That's the only way to find out what your chemistry is most compatible with, because all of us are a little bit different. Although a lot of things are the same. We're not only different internally, but whatever circumstances we're going through, they're also extremely different from one another. So I am blessed to have two types of circumstances in my life. Circumstance where I am a caretaker of my 3 children, and I'm fully immersed into taking care of them and being completely present and involved 100% in what they eat, what they drink. And then I have another perspective is as a single adult, where I don't have those responsibilities around me, and I can actually I don't have anybody to blame, right? To say, hey, well, it's impossible, because I know how impossible it is when somebody is eating right in front of you, 3 people, and they're connected to you, these people, and they're experiencing something. It's like you might already just eat it, because you're connected with them anyways. You're getting their calories or whatever it is that they're getting anyways. So that is my perspective, is that you have got to experience it all to see for yourself. But that said, my understanding, and this is where it goes into a little bit of my spiritual journey. On my spiritual journey, especially the journey that I've been taking on this specific summer, starting with foraging for mushrooms and then ending up with fasting completely, and spending the entire summer learning about the indigenous community and how they used to, well, they still do. I don't like saying that, I apologize. How they tend to the wild and how they consume everything that they have tended to, right? So they give a gift of care to the earth, and the earth gives back in the form of food, fruit, animals, fish, shellfish, and whatever wildlife, bird that they can then consume. So it's a reciprocal relationship between the environment and the consumer, the person, right? And through the process of tending to the wild, this is another concept that I'm going to weave into it, you get to know through your environment, through the process of picking something and seeing how it grows and what you need to do. You're actually looking at yourself, at your inner workings, and through this relationship with the environment, you get to know your own personal inner workings. So I personally am leaning into that the end of it all, my journey, is probably going to be looking something like this. That I would love to be fasting whenever I want to, going onto these intermittent fasting periods. But when I'm consuming, I would love to be able to consume native food that I have possibly tended to myself. And I'm not talking about farming and this, well, in a way it's going to be, but I'm not talking about these agricultural crops that are, this is another topic that we're going to talk about, agriculture and patented seeds. Hold on. Agriculture and patent seeds. Sorry, this guy needs to go faster than I'm going. And through this, basically, what I think that this is what happened. And I'm sure you've heard about this in my previous episodes, but I will be repeating this over and over again. And the idea is that Columbus discovered America is strange to me. Now that I know what I know, which I didn't. And before I was like thinking that Columbus and the settlers was where the history began, but turns out there was 12,000 years of history here before, and that United States and California especially were densely populated. There were millions of people here, indigenous people, and that the land, yes, it was not farms, but it was tended to. It was like a wild land turned into garden by not bringing foreign things, but things that were already here. Native plants, native foods, native bulbs, native berries. They were just tended to. And this is a very important point. Native people were tending to the land because they believed that everything was a gift, a nature's gift. Or let's say when nature, right, this is something from myself, when nature, from my children's book that I wrote a long time ago, I'm now understanding where that came from. I wrote that when nature has excess of energy, right, creative energy, it creates fruit. And it's a gift for us, so that when we don't have enough energy, we can, or we feel like we don't have enough energy, we can consume the fruit and then give back in some other form of energy. Let's say take the tree's dead branches away from it, right? Or prune the tree, or clean up the brush from underneath the tree, just in case there is a fire, that it's not going to have all this accumulated fuel on the bottom that will make the entire thing burn hotter than it would otherwise, and for a longer period than it would otherwise. Coming back to the main point, that because native people had this relationship where they realized that food was a gift from nature and it was meant to be eaten to create this balanced relationship between us and between nature, between our environment, right? We would consume only what belongs in our immediate 360, and by tending to it, we would get to know ourselves, and by consuming it, right, we are, and this is coming from me, probably balancing out the microbiome that is in the stomach and that is within the soil that surrounds us. Basically, we're becoming one with the environment, and becoming one with the environment, which I think environment is all. It's the brain of it all, right? Like just like fascia inside our body, and basically that would be the epitome of feeling oneness with within our physical body. So of course we can feel oneness, just spiritually, just mentally, but in order to feel oneness within the physical, which we are here present within the physical for a reason, I feel that we would have to consume our immediate environment, but not only immediate environment, but what is native to that immediate environment, right? If we can sustain that environment just the way it is, just because we're far from it, right? But if we were to restore back to those ways, then I think that would be the ultimate feeling of oneness that we would be able to experience, that we're all searching, right? That legendary oneness that everybody is searching for. And the other incredible aspect that I've learned throughout the summer about the indigenous community, and is that by tending to the wild plants, right, that was they're no longer wild. They actually say wild. The indigenous people believe wild is bad because wild means it's not tended to. So what they had is wild that was tended to. And nowadays, the way we do things, it's either all farmlands, right, and very like monocrops and very strategic and very non-diverse things, right? Like right now I'm driving, there's, as far as you can see, it's the same exact tree. It's a farm, right? I mean, imagine there is no biodiversity in that soil probably whatsoever. When you are in the wild, there is that diversity, but that wild, when it's being tended to, it becomes something other than wild. It becomes a loved wild. It becomes somebody's environment, right? So the other way that we're treating the wild is by putting boundaries on it where no one is allowed to pick anything from it. All right? So go figure, there is nothing in between, but there was something in between when before Columbus discovered America. Columbus, let's keep Columbus out of it. Let's just put before the settlers invaded the lands and stole the land and brought in their own, what I call matrix ways from Europe, which I'm a part of. So I'm not, blaming anybody for anything other than blaming myself. And I'm sure, I was present on whichever side or however many sides in my previous embodiments. So when I speak about this, I'm not judging any specific peoples. I'm just looking at the things from many different perspectives and stating what I see to be true. Now, we have this right contrast of a wild forest, and I've been foraging this summer, so I know what it looks like out there. And then we have the farmlands, agriculture, things like what we're driving right now. You see right behind me, if you look right there, look for how long we're going to have the same exact tree. And it goes far towards the mountain behind. It's the same exact tree. So it's between this and between not being able to pick wild foods unless you have permits, unless you have, I don't know what else. You get the point. Well, that middle way was already always here. And what that middle way also provided was this incredible little detail that changes everything and takes us to a different video, to a different offshoot of this conversation. But what happened was things were not allowed to be decayed. Things were not going to waste. And now, there is a big difference between decomposition and decay. And there is a big difference between picking a fruit and leaving a fruit be and decaying on the branches or under the branches. And there is a big difference between picking some fruit, right, and leaving some on the branches for the birds and the bees and the bears and keeping that balance like that. So by not picking anything at all because it's forbidden, and I've been foraging this summer and I've been trying to bring this foraged food onto people's tables, and I've went into this because of this one lady that doesn't have any food but lives right next to the forest. I've been taken on this, I took this beautiful journey of discovering how I can do that. And of course, so many soup kitchens and everybody were so open to this, and they're like, well, that's a great idea, we would love to do it. A lot of people were very receptive. Some people didn't want to eat anything from the forest that they don't know, but most people that I have asked were very open to the idea. But the moment I got to the health department, of course, all of that was done, because the lady picked up the phone and said all those things are poisonous, and that was that. So my journey went farther as to understanding, and this is how I have discovered the indigenous communities. And the process of discovering these things, it's like I get in the car and I know I have to go into this certain place, and I just go, and then I meet somebody and the story begins to unfold. It's incredible. It's incredible. I'm thankful for every minute of this, for every moment of this, but I've decided to go this route, and it was scary. It was very scary to let go. From my well-working business of being a Pilates teacher, but I know that this is one of those things that I have to understand, and I cannot move any further until I understand how and why things work the way they are, and hopefully bring change where it's needed by explaining to myself, because what I see without, if like let's say this lady from health department that picked up the phone and said all those things are poisonous, she's something within me that I have encountered here in the physical realm. She's within me, she's within the universe. So how do we come to an understanding between each other? She's the gatekeeper. How do we? So I need to educate through me, through educating myself. I know that because we're all connected through a morphogenetic field, that then she will also get that nudging within her that maybe there is a better way, or maybe not all of those things are poisonous. And maybe because so many people already eat them, maybe we can give up the rights to those who want to participate in foraging and let them forage at their own risk, or let them forage and donate foods to the local tribes or to local soup kitchens, however way. But right now it's kind of like this. Right now, through foraging this summer with incredible mushroom guides, and I realized how volatile everything is, because there is this crazy gap, right? So the indigenous communities, they only have the certain amount of land to forage, to tend to forage. They're not allowed to forage on private lands, although they know how to. They would love to, relieve that tree of its weight and then tend to it so it can produce more fruit next year. But it's private land; they're not allowed to go there. Or let's say some forests, whether it's national forest or whatever, have certain rules where you have to get permits. You have to pay for permits. So there's this whole dilemma of who is connected to what, and how now I go into the forest and I have no idea what I'm doing, right? Thank God I had my mushroom guides who explained to me that whenever we find a patch of mushrooms, let's take a quarter, or let's take 1/2, but no more than that. I wouldn't have known how to pick the mushroom correctly, how much to forage for things to stay healthy, and all that knowledge is kept by the indigenous people, but they are not allowed to forage, right? And here's this disconnect, or they refuse to buy permits because it's their land to begin with. We've stolen this land and now we're going to sell them permits to go. It's ridiculous. But this is a little bit off topic. But what I'm saying is that my guides told me that the issue is incredibly sensitive, because so many people decided, oh, I want to now forage, and they went out into the forests and they have over foraged some patches, or have damaged the habitat, leaving trash behind, and now it's very dangerous to even bring that up, because the Forest Service can just revoke all the land altogether where you can forage and say, hey, no more foraging at all. So everybody's like keeping quiet, and I said, no, if this is how you feel, we need to be screaming loud, we need to be discussing these things. But because a lot of people depend on these, on being able to freely go into the forest to forage, they don't want to take action and potentially bring something, bring these issues to light to potentially lose all of their rights. So that's where we are with that. That was a little offshoot of the topic. But the incredible part is that Native Americans were able to prevent this thing that's happening in the forest when nobody's picking the fruit. which is decay. And what is decay? Decay is not decomposition. And decay, what you see as far as decay happening in the physical matter with your physical body, let's say your tooth is decaying, or let's say you are on drugs or whatever substances, your body is decaying from within. There are certain things that happen that come along with this decaying process, and it takes things out of balance. And let me explain to you how. How do I want to approach this? My mom approached this for me, and we've had an interesting episode, but in Russian language, on my YouTube about this specific topic. And she said, well, Tanya, how is it that if I have an apple and I place an apple and I don't do anything with an apple, it begins to decay or decompose or whatever processes happen there, оно гниет, and then all of a sudden there are flies. There were never flies around. There were never little worms around. Where did these flies come from? And I said that in my journey, I've been actually shown this process, and my awareness was brought to this specific process when I was foraging mushrooms. I foraged mushrooms in the forest this summer, butter boletes, with a guide, and I was supposed to process all of the mushrooms myself afterwards, which you can find the videos on my YouTube channel, Clarity is Pretty, and on Instagram, Clarity is Pretty. And during this process of processing the mushrooms, when they were wet, I had to put them in salt water to deworm them overnight, and then in the morning I sliced them thin slices and I laid them out on wax paper on every surface outside that I could find so they can get dehydrated by the sun. Now, the moment I put the mushrooms outside, the flies came in, and I thought to myself, oh my God, I never considered it. I never considered that, oh my God, there's going to be flies. What am I supposed to do? There were huge amounts of mushrooms. It was actually me and two of my acquaintances that went with me foraging, and I was the one processing the mushrooms afterwards. So I had to lay them all out, and now all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, will I have to fight flies and go like this the entire time around the mushrooms, or should I go get nets? And I figured, you know what, I can't stand and be the ventilator like in a dehydrator, you know, where you have something that goes around and the flies won't stay. I won't be able to do that the entire time. I have other things to tend to, and I ran somewhere to get a mesh fabric to cover all the mushrooms inside. By the time I found what I needed, the type of fabric that I needed, I came back and there were no flies. And I thought, oh my God, what happened? And I realized that there was some sort of a process that was happening inside that was stopped by the sun. That's one version, that the process of decay was stopped by the sun because it was in the middle of July, high elevation, so the sun is beaming hot, and the mushrooms were able to dehydrate very quick, passing through that stage of decay in an extremely quick time. And then I just had it and I missed it. And then the other reason, so this was one of the reasons I thought, oh my God, the sun, right? The sun is the one that stopped the process of decay. And this is how I view the entire process. Let's say there is mycelium, right? Mycelium that spreads all around. It's a part of the forest, it's a part of the environment, and all of a sudden mycelium meets another mycelium and they fall in love. and they create a mushroom. And it's like, it's a gift for you guys. We're just happy to be here, and you enjoy our love, the fruit of our love. And this mushroom is connected to the mycelium. It's connected to all the environment, to the forest. It's a part of it. And I'm supposed to pick it and eat it, right? So I forage the mushroom, I pick it up, and I bring it home, and then I get busy with other things, and I'm like, well, whatever, it's just the mushroom, and I leave it, right? And the mushroom is like, well, hold on. First of all, we just severed the connection of the mushroom with the environment. It's still a part of it, but it's no longer fully connected, right? Because we severed its original connection, original cord with the environment. And now this mushroom has still this chi energy, this vital life force within it, but it's this vital life force, it has to go somewhere. It has to be consumed. And if I don't process the mushroom right away, or I don't consume it right away, that life force within it, it goes, well, what about me? And it starts spoiling. The mushroom begins to decay because it's not being consumed and it's not being tended to. So that life force, it needs to decay within it. It starts to decay within it because it's too much of it. So it burns itself out, самоуничтожается. And then the rest of the mushroom begins decomposition process. Decomposition is different from decay. Decay is that one threshold where the mushroom is like, I'm unwanted, I'm not going to be consumed, and it begins to self-destruct. It's a sad stage. And decomposition is just returning the elements back to nature. So let's say that everything has to decompose, but not everything has to pass through the stage of decay. And that brings me to the valuable, extremely valuable thing that the natives were doing. They were not allowing matter to decay, go to waste. First of all, not being wasteful, that's another offshoot of the story, but being not allowing things to decay will not bring these unwanted flies. And what do I consider to be unwanted flies? By the way, I love all of the nature, and I don't have anything that I don't understand. I might not like it, but I understand why they're there, right? So I actually wouldn't kill a fly, but in a way, I see flies around decaying matter, or some swarms of insects around the decaying matter. I see them as a representation of something non-physical swarming up, or something that was unphysical until it became a fly, swarming up around the decaying matter. What do I mean by that? I mean that our environment, or different dimensions of it, are full of energies that are yearning to be embodied. And unfortunately, we, the ones that are already embodied, we lose the memory of all of that, of how much we wanted to be embodied. And instead of enjoying every moment of embodiment, we're actually beginning to, we're decaying ourselves. And because that's the memory that we have from the previous incarnation, that we are, we want to consume. So we're also giving of ourselves in that way, because that's the, well, more on that later. So with the flies are basically a certain energy that is in being embodied, but not because it was invited to be embodied, because everything around us is energy, right? And there is a way to participate in energetic exchange or to become a channel for a certain energy, and that is to clear yourself from all the inflammation, from all the attachments, from all the decay, and then invite an energy of certain frequency or an energy of your choosing to pass through you, to allow the passage, and that therefore you're embodying that energy, right? I can embody the energy of, let's say, some divine being, Bodhisattva, I don't know. I would love to embody the energy of such and such. There are people who embody the energies of composers. There's that energy, and it can pass through you, but you have to clear the path. There is also energies that don't wait for invitation, but to them, those energies, those entities, by introducing decay, you are basically расторгаешься. You are saying that you don't need that thing, that you're not going to be consuming that flesh, or if it's your body, that, oh, my body is not worth to me enough, and in this way I will allow it to decay, and I will continue to drink and smoke and this, and have all this inflammation in my body. And same thing with unwanted apple, right? Or unwanted berries in the forest. If you are if you don't need that flesh, if you don't need that density, then there is plenty of entities that are looking to be embodied into flesh, that are looking to be embodied into certain densities, that would love to consume that specific flesh, or to break it down, or have that exchange, right? And when you are willingly choosing not to process something, or to decay your own body, or to throw food away, that's what you're inviting. You're inviting basically all these freeloaders, right? That are on the way to embodiment. The ones that are not the types of energies that are invited. And there is place for all of them, because one is not the cause of the other. Because I would say that in a way, when something goes wrong with the crop, let's say, right, and this is coming from studying about regenerative agriculture and listening to John Kempf, and one incredible podcast, one of his podcasts, he speaks about insects, and how plants that are being malnutritioned or imbalanced, they will actually invite these insects to consume them, so they can restart and they can regrow, right? And so they're kind of like garbage collectors, so to keep things moving, basically. But they're of course also becoming embodied on the way, right? And that is another cycle that we're going to look into, how that happens. But by not tending to the land and keeping it wild, we are inviting those energies, those entities, to process all the decaying stuff. Оно начинает бродить. It becomes like alcoholic, right? If if you don't pick apples and they drop, at some point it'll be like they become alcoholic all around, and some animals, right? What are they? There's a video like that of the monkeys, I think, getting drunk on these apples, right? It's because they're getting drunk on the spirit. That's the spirit actually embodying through the monkey, right? It has the instinct, gives it the instinct to go eat the apple that it already went into, the apple in the process of decay. And now think of what happens, how much extra work everybody around in that topsoil have to go through because things are out of balance, right? Because those berries or whatever most of them were supposed to be picked, and some get picked by the bird and some should be picked by the people. If you're thinking that you're not a part of this nature, then you need to watch other videos, not mine. But we're just like birds and animals. Nature, the wild nature, it gifts to humans just as much as it gifts to birds, animals, and insects. It does not cut us out. It only cuts you out if you cut her out, because it's all the same thing. It's all, one is a reflection of the other. But the fruits are made for you to pick up and eat, and to tend back to the wild in things that the wild cannot provide to itself. We are nature's hands. We are nature's feet, the tree's hands, the tree's feet. We can do for them what they cannot do for us, and they can do for us what we cannot do for ourselves, right? I can't produce an apple, right? But the tree can. But I also can make sure that the tree can, right? So it's a cycle. And I believe, well, I think that is the most balanced way to approach any diet, because, and this is again coming back to the concept that when America was discovered, we not just discovered America, we discovered a new world, meaning on every level, a new spiritual level, a new mental level, a new physical level. And Columbus discovered it, but then settlers came in, they didn't discover it. They were just shown the way. And that is the danger of showing somebody the way fully and completely and not allowing them to discover something themselves, because when they arrive, they're not able to see what is actually there. When they have not come to a realization themselves, when they have not come to an understanding themselves, they will more than likely bring their old ways with them, which is exactly what happened. People, the settlers that came after Columbus discovered America, they did not see that this was a completely new level, a more evolved level of what had been. They were blind to it. They were incapable of comprehending. They thought that these ways are like, these people are like old, right? They have these old ways of moving, and now they're so much better, so much faster. But what they didn't realize is that the perfect way was already here, and we've discovered it, but we didn't realize what we have discovered, and we shoved it aside and brought our old ways and what I consider to be the matrix, and implemented it over this natural world that is here. We've built roads, we've built cities, buildings, farms, basically changed the entire landscape of this magical land that was already here, that was tended to by the indigenous peoples. And because this fasting things are mostly coming from Eastern European girls that I'm listening to, I'm sure that it's happening everywhere, but and the way everything is being described over there by the lovely girls that I love very much, I can see that they are describing it from the matrix, from something that's been implemented way before United States matrix was implemented. So they do not have access right now to this indigenous way of life, to this magic that was here before we've expanded so far and implemented something on top of that magic, covering it up almost entirely. Right now, in the United States, because it's so close and it's becoming, the light has been shedded onto it, and so many of way showers, thank you guys, who are bringing light to the indigenous communities and their ways and the true history of this country. Thank God for these people. Thank God for my inner guidance, for taking me to understand that that's what has happened, because I had no idea. And now I see that how the people that растождествляются, the ones that are denying themselves food and water and sleep altogether, because they're fully immersed into that matrix thing, and that's what they know. That's how they know to get out of the matrix, right? To completely deny it, stop consuming it, and therefore start bringing the source from within. And that is brilliant. That is exactly their way. But here, where we are now, where I am now, there is another way available, and that it was here all along. It was the way of the indigenous people, where they didn't have to deny themselves and break apart from the environment, because the environment was natural. There was no matrix over it. This was the level that was closer to the essence, much closer to oneness. People here were on the way. They were speaking to the Great Spirit. They were enlightened already and living the enlightened way and practicing the enlightened way. So because some of it, a little bits and pieces are preserved of this enlightened way, we have the chance to not just have to block ourselves completely from this matrix that was implemented on top of a natural environment, and then have to dig deep from within and maybe die from fasting, maybe leave and become completely autonomous. I think that there is a better way, and that way is returning to the indigenous way, giving back the land to the people who were here first, who were born here, who know this land, and then learning from them how to tend to it, and then starting to take the gifts, because we tend to the land and we upbring the indigenous plants, the native plants, the ones that belong here, not something we brought from Europe and now genetically modified to adapt to this environment, to this weather, to this climate, but to allow the nature to push back through with whatever it's supposed to do, to restore the environment, to restore the diversity. Look, we're craving diversity. You are constantly hungry because you are not eating your natural environment, because these fruits, these vegetables even, and I'm not talking about fast food, I'm talking about the healthiest of foods, they're empty. You go, when you become clear, when you become very receptive to energetics within food, you will see that even going to Whole Foods, most of that food has no longer has energy within it. No longer it has chi in it, the life force in it. It's completely severed, and it's so genetically modified to stay good for a while that it to people who are blind to it yet, it seems like it's a better choice, but it's really not. The best choice so far I found is from farmers markets, the ones that picked yesterday and then are selling it today. But those are a little more expensive, although some are not as expensive. There are plenty of farmers there that are very well priced. And by the way, most farmers markets accept EBT, and they will also match. They will also whatever you buy from farmers market with EBTs, you will get cash back, extra cash, which is an incredible program, which I'm so thankful for, because it really promotes health within our communities. And it's a beautiful system. You just really need to see it for what it is. So coming back to the point of giving back the land and taking down whatever crops, I understand this is very whimsical of me to think that way, but slowly but surely this is where we're gonna get. We're going to give the land back. Everybody's gonna have their little immediate 360 that they will just allow to unfold in front of them, and then they will allow then they will learn how to take care of those things that are around them. And you will see that the amount of diversity in native plant is immense, and it will you will not have to have any supplements. Another topic, any supplements or you won't have to even think about your diet, because if you just allow the nature to unfold the way it should, if we can restore by whatever memory is left within the indigenous tribes, restore the pieces of land to what they're used to be, then you will realize that you don't have to have protein, meat, this and that, the three different meats that we have, along with the 5 different vegetables, that all of the nutrition will be within that 300, and all the nutrition needed for you will be right around in your immediate 360. And in my perspective, that is, by the way, another interesting offshoot that I'm going to go to right now. I'm not going to go quick. I'm going to go slow. And as I'm exploring this topic, and I'm realizing that, fasting is beautiful, but that's completely cutting out your environment. And if you live in the matrix, then I would understand why you would want to do that. And that is a way, if you're doing it, safely. But if we still have that little tiny bit of thread from the past, from this magical land that was already here, that's underneath all this construct, this natural land, then why not use the opportunity and do everything in our power to dive fully in there, to save those traditions, to bring them back to light, and to learn and change things around. And then as I'm learning all of this and understanding all these things from my own self and for where I stand, with all of this, a show comes on, Andrew Huberman. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing the name, but a very talented guy, very scientific, right? So that's like the universe is teaching me this way to look. There are people who think this way. And the show that I listened to, he explains about like all these things that can make your brain work better, and all these things you must have in your diet, supplements and and like where they come from. And I understand that that's a way too. As people believe that, and it will work for them. They believe that that they can. Well, first of all, the funny part about all this, and specifically Andrew Huberman, he's like, yeah, well, I don't eat much fish, but I know I should, but I supplement with this and I supplement with that, and like he names all these different things that are for the brain. And you know, looking at him, you would think that it is the things that probably work so well because he's so smart. But I challenge that, because I think that Andrew Huberman is just smart. He's been but he's curious, and because he's curious and he's constantly learning and pushing himself to learn new things, to explore new things, that's how he creates all these new neurological connections, because he dives deep into all the scientific knowledge, and by stretching his mind, he therefore creates all these connections that afterwards, you know, I don't know if he needs to eat anything at all, you know, he's probably going to be just as brilliant because of his curiosity and his work ethic. You know, so right now it is a great thing that that's what he believes, because all of those people can profit because Andrew Huberman, who is so brilliant, believes in that right now. But if tomorrow Andrew Huberman would realize that he doesn't need to eat anything because everything can be synthesized from the ethers and from the surrounding air and molecules inside the air, then I wonder who would, you know, be profiting from that then? Probably nobody, right? If you can pull information from the ethers and synthesize whatever your body needs for the day from pre-molecules, from the elementals, then how do you patent that, right? How do you make money on that? Who would sponsor him that? But that's not to take away from what he says, because he's absolutely brilliant. And maybe, God knows, one day I'm actually going to come around to his path, right? Looking at how I'm evolving and how many paths are unfolding in front of me, I wouldn't be surprised. But it is an interesting observation that there is a way where people believe that they absolutely need a certain, like there's a lab, you know, like scientific lab, your body, and you need this and this and this and this and this and this and keep it in balance, and they will go ahead and they will pick all these things and from the lab, right? It's not from made anywhere, and they'll make them popular, and then something else becomes popular. All of a sudden you don't need this and you need this, and yes, our body is constantly evolving. But if you take a step back and just look back, like open the window, imagine there's a window into a different reality, and you're gonna take a knob and you're gonna open the door, that window, and peek through into how it used to be here, and look at all the diversity of the native plants, fish, bird, game, all of it. If you look at the mere diversity, how many hundreds, thousands of plants there were, you will realize that we had it. That we've had it, and it was already here. We didn't have to go into the lab and do it synthetically. We had all the diversity and all the everything that our body could potentially need. And not only we had it, but we also were able to самоосознаться через это. We were able to, through tending to this diversity and through having to remember this everything about this diversity, right? Meaning there was no internet, there was no, I'm not saying that the internet is bad or whatever, right? I know that that's what my mom would say. Oh, you don't learn. That's a narrow way of thinking it. I'm exploring, I'm an explorer. I'm exploring all pathways. And now I'm exploring, imagine when you had to memorize all the knowledge about every plant. Let's say, and each plant has stem, or like a tree has a trunk, has bark, has all the layers in between, has sap, has branches, has leaves, has fruits, has roots, and the roots are connected to the mycelium. Oh my God, and you can use all of those parts and you will have zero waste, right? Because all of that stuff will pass through you and go back into the earth without any chemicals, without anything having to be decomposed. And meanwhile, to learn how to tend to all the parts of that one single tree, let's say that's a cedar tree that can feed you and be the medicine to you and make a canoe for you, you would have to memorize how all of that works, right? There was no writing, no internet, no like, oh, let me Google because I have no idea how to do it. It was all imprinted within us. So we were exploring the world, we were learning, we were creating immense neurological connections through interacting with the environment, tending to the wild, and through having this diversity, just upkeeping things the way they are, just kind of carefully gardening around them and not allowing things go to waste, having this reciprocal relationship. So my question is, why are we looking in the direction of, the scientific developments and not looking in the direction of going back to the way things were when things, were working great? And even the wildfires, right? They were controlled fires to tend to the land. Now we have these pieces of land that are not tended to, where all these fuels are accumulating, the dead branches, the dead leaves. Nobody's picking them up. It's no one's land. It's a national park, right? It's closed. You can buy a ticket to visit. And then we have these crazy big fires. Well, I'm not gonna say, there's plenty of people that are taking care of national parks, and forgive me for not mentioning that. And I'm very, very, very proud and thankful from all of you. But there are pieces of land that are not being tended to. They could be. Let's give that land away. Let's let people tend to it. Let's give it away. And avoid these crazy California fires that so much fuels have accumulated because the land is being not tended to, that a little spark ignites these absolute disasters. So why not look in that direction? Why are we only looking in these under a microscope when we actually have things right in front of us? We don't need to look in the telescope into the stars or into the microscope and into the petri dish to necessarily know what to do. We've had it. We were given a land that was magical. We are on it right now. So why not uncover that magic back? And coming back to the diets, that is so far my opinion on being completely autonomous, meaning fasting altogether, no drinking, no eating, things that people already are exploring, and then tending to the wild, taking down these, or some of it. Like right now, the Klamath River dams were removed, and the river can flow the way it's supposed to flow, and the salmon can return to their original spawning spots, and the entire this is going to sustain so many people. This is going to sustain the forest, because the carcasses of that fish that is getting back into their estuary, into these little streams, all offshoots of the big river that were not available to them because the dams were built. Because they can get that far inland into all of those little streams to spawn, their carcasses are going to be giving valuable nitrogen to those places of land, creating forests. And there you go, your cycle again, right? All because we took that construction off the one that we've implemented, because I just watched a brief video about Klamath River dam removal, and the argument against it is that these dams, they control water they sustain water for irrigation for our crops. Well, of course it does, and it's still not enough, right? Because let's take down the crops. Let's bring back all the indigenous native plants. And you're not those plants are, a lot of them, when they're mature, they don't need water. They don't need that much water. They have evolved with the local climate for centuries. For centuries, they know that at some point their roots go super duper deep. So they'll create these little water pools underneath, and because their roots are so interconnected and so diverse, it's like a matrix of its own over there that allows them to sustain themselves even in the drought conditions. But if you bring crops from Europe, the ones that are not indigenous to this land, exotic crops that are, and then place them just like this behind me, if you place them in vast pieces of land, and then you irrigate them, and you will never have enough water. There will never be enough, because they're just not meant for this climate, these things. And not only they're not meant for this climate, they're not meant to be placed all together in one patch just like that. They all need the same nutrients. They're depleting the land from the nutrients. But imagine bringing multi-crops, which, by the way, John Kempf is advocating in his teachings about regenerative agriculture, about rotating crops, and bringing diversity into patches of lands. Now, why are we not all screaming about it and doing it? The information is right there. And the dams, right? So the argument against the removal of dams is that we need to water the crops. Of course, we've implemented, that's what I'm talking about, matrix. We've implemented structure on top of natural structure. We removed native plants. We put all apple trees in like miles and miles of land, and now we need a ton of water to water all that land, of course, because apples need a ton of water. But if we would say, we would put, allow the land to diversify with indigenous plants that don't need this much water, then things would just be as they are. And if we would learn about our environment instead of being fed by someone who knows how to grow apples, tomatoes, and cucumbers, and how to raise and kill a cow, instead of being just, and us clicking a button to get all of those things. But if we focus all of our attention on actually learning about the indigenous plants, learning about the local environment, and restoring the land, then it brings us back to harmony. It brings us back to harmony. It solves so many problems. The water problem, the food that lacks nutritional value problem. No longer do we need these supplements, or no longer do we need to place these monocrops, grow these monocrops, because we need to have so much, so many apples to make this jar of pectin or whatever. The other argument against dams is that it contains water for the wildfires. Well, it can also be argued that there would not be so many wildfires that are actual uncontainable, that require so much water to put out, if the land was balanced, if the land was tended to. There were wildfires, of course, in pre-Columbian United States, but there were also there were less of them. They were not as devastating, and there was because there was a fire regimen, because people were tending to the land and burning it to bring the crops anew in little patches, and because everybody had their little patch of land, they were fully, completely capable to tend to that specific patch of land. Now we have big farms owning huge pieces of land, us owning everything is imbalanced. Everything is completely imbalanced. So rather than looking at which supplement I can add to my brain to make it work, because most of my food is depleted of everything, I want to go back or forward or deeper within and unlock this magic that's already here, that was here, that is still here underneath all this BS that is not working. It's not working. It's not. You go into the store, you pay crazy money, and you're hungry. You're constantly hungry. Your belly grows, but your brain power doesn't, and now you need supplements. So you're stuck working and working and working to afford all this nutritionally depleted food, and to buy extra nutrients on top of this, and it's all buy. So I don't know what to do. I know the universe will unfold how I can be of service in this issue. But this again comes back to this immense issue of food, and how far off course we have gotten ourselves, and how hard it might be to get back on track, but possible. But we are, no matter where you are, I'm sure that you have underneath the matrix that's all around you, there is that indigenous way of your country, of your indigenous people, that new magic. We think that we're evolving, but actually evolving is going deeper, further away from the center. So yes, maybe we are evolving, but maybe it's time to involve, to go back in, to go deeper to the center, because we've gone so far out that things don't make sense anymore. Things are so seemingly disconnected. They're so far apart that maybe by going back towards the center, by going back in time, and that's how I see the universe work, the time work. It's breathing. It expands and contracts, and what you think was the past is actually the future, right? It's always going to be past, future, depending where you are in that cycle of breath. All right, I think I've laid out a couple of major concepts in this video. There's way more to come, but I will try to